Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Game Ready Technology Future Report podcast. Today is January 25th, and it's our second episode. So we have a lot of stuff going on today. We're going to be talking about some graphics cards, monitors, and some potential price increases for the new year. So let's start talking about the Intel graphics card rumors that we know about. So Intel came forward. There was an exclusive interview done. I believe I got this information from Guru 3D. But what they were talking about was, what is the state of Battlemage? What's going on? Where are they in the process of development? And from what we know, it was actually PC World. And what we know is that they have silicon running in their labs. So there are Battlemage GPUs functioning in Intel labs right now, which is exactly what we wanted to hear. There were a lot of people concerned about the scheduling and whether or not they were actually going to release something, because there were also rumors that the project would be dropped. So now we know there's working graphics cards somewhere at Intel, and that the engineers are focused on Celestial, which is their third iteration. So the engineering team has done their work.
Yeah, they're done with that, and they're heading on to the next project.
And now it's not development project. Now it's a production process.
And marketing.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a really, really, really good look. And then we also got some exclusive leaks on what the 770 replacement card is going to be. Okay. So what we know, it's going to be using what they call XE2. It's going to have 56 Xe cores, so that's just how they're laying out this chiplet. I don't know what much of that really means for real world.
Yeah, we won't know until we get to test the cards.
Exactly, and we're going to be doing that for sure.
Yeah.
We also know that it's got 112 megabytes of internal cache, very similar to how, from what we know, Ryzen to Radeon does that high bandwidth link.
Okay.
This is a similar idea, but it's actually in the graphics card. And for what it actually goes between, I'm not quite sure, but what they're saying is it may have something to do with ray tracing, upscaling, the things that NVIDIA has had a kind of chokehold on the market on for the last 4 years. So this is a really good information. And then finally, the big one, it's going to be shipping with, again, 16 gigs of VRAM, but GDDR6X this time.
Yep.
And on a 256 megabit bus. So it's...
Wow, so that's like it's top of the line right there.
Exactly. And if it's anywhere near the original price of the A770, it's going to be an incredibly performant card.
That's true.
From what we're looking at.
Yep.
So that's everything for Battlemage. And that's going to be, they're saying, early 2024. So it's currently end of January. So the end of quarter one, perhaps. We might see something about it.
Maybe.
But there's more to it for that for graphics cards. We've got another graphics card coming out soon.
Yeah, we've got the RX 7600 XT. This one is just a little bit below the Intel cards, as we can see. 16 gigabytes of RAM, or VRAM, excuse me. Unfortunately, it's GDDR6, not 6X, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I'm kind of happy to see that, because I want to see Intel succeed in this market. And it's only on a 128-bit bus instead of a 256. So Intel does have a large lead if the rumors are true with that.
If the drivers are as competitive.
Exactly. It also has 32 compute units, so it's leading in that a little bit. As far as I can tell, unless the Xe cores are something different than what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's something that will be very interesting to really put to the test if we buy both of them and kind of do a head-to-head comparison of them.
Yep. So this is seeing the same ray tracing capabilities as about the 4060. So is that correct?
Yeah, it falls just below, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So it's...
I don't know. So the 600 series is like equivalent to the 60 series. That's pretty much what we're saying.
What it's supposed to be, but it looks
we're
more
not
like,
seeing... It's the XT,
it's
so
like
it should be better.
Is like NVIDIA's base model, essentially.
Yeah.
So they're like half a tier below.
So the XT... So I know that there's just the regular, then there's the XT, and there's the XTX. Mm. So the regular would just be like the 4060, right? Correct, and then the XT is supposed to be like the Super,
something like that.
And then the XTX is like the TI.
I guess so, but they only made the 7900 XTX.
It's kind of unfortunate that we're seeing them fall behind on this, because Radeon was supposed to have better gaming performance, and ray tracing is pretty much fully gaming oriented. There is some that goes into modeling and simulation and stuff, but as far as gaming goes, if we're seeing lower ray tracing capabilities on the XT variant of the 7600, then
it's just disappointing.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. But there's a catch. The MSRP is only $329, which is like the 4060 is still going for like, what is it, $800 right now?
No, the 60 is only going for $380.
Oh, really?
Is what it is. But it's still like they're still undercutting Nvidia just slightly, but it's one of those things where, at least from what I can see on this, like with a bus that's that narrow, it's the same problem that the 4060 Ti ran into.
Yep.
Where so many games barely had uplift at all, unless it was that game was specifically using more than 8 gigs. If that's not the case, then the cards didn't really have much of an uplift from that extra VRAM. So if that's what we're getting now on the 60 series, it's just been a kind of a series of disappointments in the last.
Yeah, the GPU market is really it's disappointing, but the Intel graphics card is definitely a huge uplifting. In other computer components, we've got the rising price of RAM and storage, unfortunately. So you want to take that away?
Sure. So from what we know and what the rumors are telling us and what the market is trending towards, the price of NAND is going to go up.
Yeah.
And because most of the manufacturers are using the same 3 companies of NAND, so for example, Team Group uses Samsung silicon on their RAM.
Yep.
If that price of that initial NAND goes up, then all of the components that use that base silicon is going to go up as well. So what they're saying is RAM can go up 40%, storage can go up 40%, 50%. So
basically they're limiting the production rate.
Correct.
So instead of them making the same amount, they're gonna start limiting how much they're making per batch, and then selling off to the different manufacturers.
Exactly. They're gonna just artificially inflate the market through limited
quantity. So it's just they are practicing the good old supply and demand.
Exactly. It's just manipulating the market.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate reality of it is that when you do something like this, it kind of ruins the viability of newer products like the 990 Evo. Samsung SSD that's coming out to replace the prior generation ones. And, obviously that's something that if you're a video editor, if you do professional work, simulations, you need a lot of storage. And when these new products come out and the MSRP is a good $50, $60, $70 US higher than what it was the year before, it makes it very difficult to, especially for budget, even on the budget market, it becomes very difficult to spec out budget PCs that actually make sense.
And we've been experiencing like the drives that don't have NAND are they're not great, especially for long lasting use. But as soon as we have NAND on there, they've already been so much more expensive. The price has been coming down, but if we're actually going to see a price raise, we might actually start moving away from NAND entirely when it comes to SSDs.
Yeah.
Because there are more technically viable options out there for SSDs. It's just not as good, but people are going to be more inclined to buy non-NAND drives.
Yeah.
Which is not good because everyone's computer is going to be breaking because it's just drives that use regular cache are just not. They're not really
to be as reliable, especially on long endurance. If you're a video editor, you're not using NAND.
Especially, video editors or modelers and simulators, people who have their computer on for very extended periods of time. An SSD without NAND could be super viable for somebody who just carries a laptop around and just writes papers sometimes. It's not it's unusable. But people who are in more professional environments who would need a 990 Evo, those are the people who are going to be suffering the most from this.
Especially if you apply that price increase to a batch of drives, that balloons the cost a lot. And the final thing I'll say on that too is the timing. Well, I'll say this: if you're going to be building a new PC this year, and RAM or storage is the reason you haven't done it yet, from what the trends are showing, it's probably best to do it now because DDR5 has come down significantly in the last 6 months, and apparently this is all we're going to get. So if you're going to go do DDR5 as an upgrade, then now's probably the time to make that jump.
Yeah.
In addition, Lexar is one particular company that's been releasing more of the budget DDR5 kits to make that whole entire, I guess you'd call it a platform, more available widely.
Yeah.
So you might actually get in the sweet spot where you can land yourself a cheaper but still very high performance kit of DDR5 for a reasonable price before it all balloons.
Yeah.
So now is kind of the time.
Yeah, you kind of have to rush on this one.
A little bit. On the topic of DDR5, the last thing that it does is it kind of raises the platform cost for the newer generations of chips. And one of the newer chips that's coming out, which this is something that you actually wanted written down and to take care of. It's the Ryzen 8000G series. So those are coming out, and those are only DDR5.
Yeah, so the Zen 4 chips, is it Zen 4C?
Yeah,
is that what it is?
Zen 4C.
Yeah, it's just like a subdivision,
Yeah, it's
a
a
newer
cut
one. Yeah, they're coming out with new APUs, the 8000G. It's going to be having lower clock speeds, but it is going to have that the graphics performance. And this is very exciting because it's got the new 740M GPU in it, which will be very interesting to see what they can do with newer handheld consoles, smaller computers, things on that nature.
Like consoles. That could be interesting.
I love to see, like, you can get so much performance out of, like, the Steam Deck and stuff. So I want to know, like, what is the next step going to be when converting, like, a desktop CPU into something that you can just hold in your hand?
We've really, I think even just the fact that, I mean, I saw on Twitter the other day, someone managed to get a Steam Deck, like with no mods, to run an entire copy of FL Studio with MIDI, with plugins, with effects, all off a little Steam Deck. And that's just amazing proof that we're reaching a point in handheld computing that it's like, it's almost interchangeable.
Yeah.
It's amazing, really.
Yeah, there is some limitations, obviously, because of size, and just from what we know, it's like when you limit the heat, like you're limiting the function of the processor. So there's still going to be the advantages of size, obviously. If you have a bigger cooler, then it's going to run faster. But having handheld consoles that are actually a viable option that's very fun to see. It's and just as you explained earlier with the running FL Studio, just the goofy things that you can do with it. It's really cool.
It's pretty awesome. I think one thing too that's kind of cool with these is that because they support so many different codecs, so many different, for example, DisplayPort 2.1, they have so many of the newer technologies that for someone who plays very lightweight games, like older games, Dota, competitive games like Counter-Strike, that's a pretty viable option to get in a little handheld package.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's very compelling.
Yeah, and it's not like the frequencies, like the core clocks, are even that small. We're running a 4 gigahertz processor and 4.1. Like for a base clock on the Zen 4, this is the 8500G, by the way, that I'm talking about.
8500G?
That's what I meant. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
8500G.
Oh, yeah.
Zen 4, that's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's 4.1 gigahertz is still that's still decently high.
What's our 5500 that we use? Isn't that
3.6?
6?
Yeah, the 5500 is 3.6.
That's a very significant increase.
Yeah, the Zen 4 C cores, that subdivision we were talking about, those have a lower base clock. Those run 3.2 gigahertz. Oh. So if you do splurge and get the higher one, then you're still seeing like pretty much the same performance as something without the APU. So 4 gigahertz that's really good.
And especially on a 6-core Ryzen 5. I mean, for the average desktop user, what more do you really need right now?
Yeah, and so the Ryzen 5 8600G and the Ryzen 7 8700G offer 8 and 12 graphics cores running at 2.8 gigahertz. So that would be just pretty much focusing all of its power just towards graphics capabilities. So,
I mean, that's basically like we're talking 1060 performance roughly out of these things.
I'm hoping. I hope that I can get my hands on one of these so I can see like what its raw power is.
Yeah, seriously.
Especially throwing like a really like a massive AIO on it, or just like a big air cooler. Well, just to see the sheer performance that we can run it at.
Do you remember, were the old G processors, like the 3600G, were those core unlocked? Like, could you overclock those, or were they locked? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. That's a good question.
Because it's kind of a waste of your time if you buy one and it's like locked at whatever PBO AMD sets it at.
I don't know. I feel like if it was unlocked, then we would have done something.
The morbid curiosity
like
makes me want to look this up really quick, but we're probably not going to be told. We probably won't be able to figure it out until they're actually released.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it on the Ryzen cores.
Pretty interesting. So we also have a ton of new monitors hitting the market. We covered some of them last episode. We covered the MSI QD OLED monitors.
Yeah.
And today we're covering LG's offerings. So.
Yeah. So the LG smart monitors are coming out in the 2024 CES. We're going to see what those offer, but pretty much just it's a workstation that does not actually require a computer. So it's basically just a monitor. Do you know if you have to have your phone in your pocket with you?
They never specified how it works.
Yeah, so basically it's a glorified smart TV that it works like a smart TV, but it's supposed to be very aesthetic.
Yeah.
So like more of an Apple operating system. It runs on WebOS.
Mm-hmm. So it's the same operating system as the smart TVs.
Yeah.
Just maybe tweaked.
Yeah,
a little.
I'm hoping to see that it's tweaked. And
I would assume it is.
It's pretty much
remote,
just a desktop. It's like an all-in-one.
Yeah, because the thing is, what this reminded me of, you brought this up and you were like, hey, we should check this out. And when I looked into it, it was kind of interesting because when I had my time at Best Buy, one of the things that they put on display along with their first big 8K OLED TV was it was a smart monitor, very similar to this idea. You would purchase it, you would have your Galaxy smartphone, and you would tap it to the corner of the display. And you would
like
run
NFC or something?
Exactly. And it would run Samsung DeX. It's a desktop environment, very similar to what you get on like an Apple computer or a Windows laptop, right on the monitor, but it was working through the phone.
Yeah, I'm
LG
very
doesn't
aware.
make phones anymore, so
I've used that a lot.
LG doesn't make smartphones anymore, though. So what that makes interesting is like, is it going to be like an industry standard
There's no
solution?
way. It's got to be just like a home computer. It's got to like just a replacement for your average family's all-in-one.
And I mean, that market kind of needs to go away in some ways as well. So this could be the stepping stone to something different. Because it would mean, considering it's remote, it could potentially mean that if you get better hardware, you then hook this up to that and you get an upgrade. Whereas with a home family computer, it's really difficult to upgrade anything.
Something that I'm interested to see is like, because it's basically just a smart TV and it's got the same, it uses the same operating system. What are the applications going to look like on there? Because there's not really work applications on TVs.
That's why I was thinking they've got to do some sort of tweaking.
There's got to be.
Right?
They have to have their own proprietary software, which would be that would steer a lot of people away. Because what family is going to use this and just take whatever software LG throws at them over a computer that they've had that they use like Microsoft Excel?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of like just a standard family in the United States that uses just a standalone all-in-one.
Forget families. Consider schools or like departments, right?
See, but that's the same thing.
Yes and no.
Because when you're talking about schools use their own software and they license the software from actual like.
That is true. There's so much stuff that's web-based now that just runs in your browser. So if this thing can run a browser, it can run a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe schools.
But I'm thinking just because I was in like a specialized portion of my school, like how would we run like for instance like PCB design software off of there? Like I'm basing this is off of a hunch because I don't know what they're gonna have on here for software. But if they are letting software from other operating systems come on there,
Compatibility.
then I'm hoping there's some type of compatibility layer, because I don't see the practical use for this if there's not software that people are used to.
Because the thing about it, I think perhaps because LG, whatever it is, WebOS,
Yep.
it's similar in a lot of ways. Like, I think they're directly related in a lot of ways to Google TV.
Yeah.
Because I remember the major complaint about WebOS is that it's very, very similar to Google TV, except that it's locked down. And Google TV is very similar to Chrome OS in a lot of ways. There's some interconnectivity there. So maybe there's a slight chance that it'll work more like a Chromebook, where most of it's web-based. Perhaps
Yeah,
there's
that
some
would
sort
be-
of Android compatibility.
That would make more sense, I guess.
Because it specifically says there's no PC connectivity. So everything's done on board in the hardware. So then the software has to have some sort of compatibility. So it's a very interesting mix.
Wait, it says, I'm just reading it off of the script. It says work remotely without having to connect to a PC. Does that mean that it's like through a server?
Perhaps. Which then means it's software as a service, which would imply subscriptions.
I don't, that's something that's extending beyond, like, far beyond what.
Well,
what
the
we
truth
can
of it
really
is, this
guess.
is from LG's own site. This is from
Yeah.
LG Newsroom. So we'll see it at
The,
CES.
the cool thing about that, and this is the last thing I'll say about this topic, is it's got a 4K IPS display.
That is true.
So that's at least pointing towards aesthetic.
I mean, truth be told, if someone buys this and it's a fair enough price and the workstation aspect of it just isn't that compelling, at least it's a 4K WebOS smart TV.
Exactly. And it says that it streams movies and series and sports, and you can listen to music. So it could at least be a basic TV that, like, looks a little better and you have to sit closer to.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it probably won't be as viable as they're trying to make it sound,
Yeah.
unless they pull some sort of...
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they have to offer. I'm definitely going to stay on top of this, and we'll make another podcast as soon as this comes
We'll
out.
follow up on this. I'm going to mark that.
Yep,
'cause
we'll
that's
follow
pretty
that.
fun. I'm going to mark that right now.
And then we have LG is not only releasing some smart monitors, but they're releasing gaming monitors as well. Do you wanna take that off?
Sure. So from what we know, there's not much. I'll be honest. But what they've developed is supposedly the fastest thing that's going to be unveiled at CES this year. Every company says that, so this is nothing new.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is, where other companies have managed to make a 27-inch 500 hertz monitor on inferior IPS panels,
Yeah.
they've managed to make a 480 hertz display that's at 27 inches, and it's OLED.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is it's going to be the first of its kind to usher in a whole new era of OLEDs that feature, this is directly from them, ultra high refresh rates, and obviously LG's trademark incredible color chroma. They just look great. So there's no price reveal yet and no launch date. They're saying first half of 2024. What are you thinking?
I was just gonna ask, do you know what the response time is?
Most likely 1 to 4 milliseconds, because that's been their trend. It's not going to be a quantum dot display. The technology just isn't
Yeah,
there.
I mean that refresh rate is ludicrous.
The refresh rate is ludicrous.
That is ludicrous.
And it's only really they're basically whale fishing with this, because the only people who are going to buy this are like top 20 Counter-Strike global, I don't know.
Yep.
Top 30 players in the world, professionals.
Yeah.
There's no other practical use.
Or somebody who just doesn't know where to spend their money.
So whale fishing. No. But yeah, I mean, pretty much 480 hertz OLED is crazy.
I mean, I think it's the further that we increase how good something can get, the cheaper the things on the bottom end get.
Exactly.
So I'm just happy to see, well, maybe the 240 hertz will.
And it's
will
funny
drop.
that you bring that up, because I was just on Amazon looking for a second monitor, because I'm going to be expanding my desk setup in a few months. So I'm going to be looking into, actually getting a decent primary monitor to replace my aging HP Omen 240 hertz. And I paid $350 for that thing with a gift card, so it wasn't exactly what I paid.
Yeah.
But it was $350 on a $50 sale as is from somewhere in the ballpark of $420. It was like cream of the crop, 2017, 2018, best you could get, whatever. And I just saw a 240 hertz on Amazon for like $208.
That's crazy. What was
better than the one that I have?
What was the resolution?
1920 by 1080, just like mine. 240 hertz, IPS panel, but it was a.
I thought yours was not. I thought yours was 4K.
Nope, mine's just a 1080p monitor.
Nah.
Yeah, it's 1080p. It has pretty good color. Like it's got a good color profile.
No, I'm gonna check on that. I'm gonna check on that later.
All right. Well, when you help me rebuild my setup, we'll look at it.
Yeah, we'll look at that.
But that's really the biggest takeaway from a lot of this stuff is that while most of us here are not going to buy this stuff, like whenever the Samsung Odyssey came out, I remember when I was at Best Buy, I sold one of those to one guy. It was a $4,330 monitor.
Yeah,
Dude bought it in cash, brought it out in his truck, left, and that was the one that I sold. And that's just how it goes. You're most likely never going to buy this stuff.
Yeah,
but because it exists,
exactly,
it basically drives the price down for everything else that the more practical buyers among us are really looking for.
Yeah.
So this is great.
See, I don't fulfill my desires when it comes to buying all the nice stuff, but I do love when something new comes out so I can buy something cheaper from the lower end because that's what I do.
I will admit, I was very close to buying that PS5 exclusive 4K 144 hertz monitor when that came out, just for the look.
Really?
It's pathetic. It's pathetic. But it was so good looking. It's like a 30-inch monitor, widescreen. It had some of the best color I've ever seen on a monitor. But it's one of those things where, when you bring out your wallet and you're like,
no way.
So, like I said, I mean, this is some really great stuff. And with the kind of from this entire list of things that we've kind of talked about, while the graphics cards may be a bit disappointing, it may be a really good time in general because monitors, which is something that a lot of us end up cheaping out on, might actually end up being a lot better.
Yeah, and we can kind of even see that in the RAM and storage department too. Like we know that the prices are going to go up, but the prices of the cheaper stuff, though, that will probably drop.
It may drop, yeah, and that'll be something that obviously we'll keep you guys updated on, and it's just a lot of fun to see where the market goes. And I think that with companies like LG really pushing the envelope on what's actually physically possible in these monitors, and then someone like Intel pushing what's possible on the low end for graphics cards, hopefully it'll keep that market nice and competitive. So when we go in later to actually make our purchases, we can get a lot of value out of that middle part of the market.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in if you listened this far. We appreciate every last one of you. And if you would like to connect with us in any way, we have a Discord server and a website. You can view the server directly from the website. It's GameReadyTech.com. And we will be back in a week's time with the next episode. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.